Hello everyone, Carol Undy here again with another Bernina tutorial, and today I'm going to be looking at the ripple stitch a little bit more closely. So to select that, when you're creating your area, you just come down to your options here for your fill types and select the ripple stitch. You can also apply ripple to an existing area by selecting the area and then clicking on your ripple icon here, and it will change your fill to a ripple fill. The ripple fill spirals around a central point, so let's just create a shape to start with. And so we use our closed object tool and create, I'm just creating a little leaf shape here. Wasn't a very good one, but we'll enter that. Okay, and the ripple stitch is created. I'm just going to select that now and use my reshape tool to delete that one, and that will give me a slightly better shape. Delete it and enter. Okay, now I would have the stalk of the leaf coming off here if I wanted one, but it just gives you the general idea. Now you can see that it's a fairly open stitch. I've set my start and end under my arrange menu, start and end here, to the first stitch of the design and the last stitch of the design, just so that you can see which way it stitches. And you can see the green circle here is the start, so it starts in the center and ends on the outside. Now we can move the end point, enter, and it doesn't change the look of the design at all. The start point will always be the middle. We can't move the start point, you can't grab it, you can't select it, but you can move this little pink diamond, and that is actually the part where it starts. So if I move that lower down or higher on the leaf here and press enter, you will see that the ripples expand out from that area. It means the stitching will be more dense here and more open at this end because it's got further to go, and because of this sharp point we're getting dense stitches down the vein. So you can create quite a textured look by fiddling around with your starting point. I've just moved it a little bit further up there, enter that, and it's quite dense here and more open here, and we're getting a more pronounced vein right down the middle of the leaf. So it's a good way to add texture to a design, and you can play around with that quite a bit. Just be careful that you don't get too dense a stitching down here, so zoom in to make sure that your stitching is still you know, like about 1 millimetre apart, and always do a test sew. So there's quite a few needle points coming down through here. I've got show needle points selected, view needle points ticked, so I can see how many needle penetrations there are before I even test sew, which gives you an opportunity to know whether it's going to sew out reasonably well or be too densely stitched. Okay, now there's one problem with ripple stitch. Let's just go back to 1-to-1. Because it stitches out from the center, if I create another one, and the quickest way to do that would be to duplicate it for you today. So I'm going to go back to the select button, and I'm going to go copy and paste, or I could go edit, duplicate. There's a number of ways of copying a different object, and so I'm just going to select that last one and move it across here. Now you can see that from the end of the design it has now done a jump stitch from here to here, and then it will stitch over the top from the center out. Now if you have your center in an area where the stitching is not so dense, so if we go to our reshape tool here and move that center back to the middle again just for this exercise, enter, you can actually, if I zoom in, you will see that jump stitch under there, and it will get caught under the stitching. And because these two objects are the same color, it won't, the sewing won't stop for you to trim that jump stitch. Now you may say, well, you could change the color of the second object, but you may not want to. You may want to create a a bunch of leaves all the same colour with this ripple stitch, and you're going to get these jump stitches that are going to get in the way of the stitching. Now there's no way of changing the start and end points on the ripple stitch, but there is a way you can trick the software. So we'll go back to the select key, and what we can do is do a double run. I'm just going to, yes, I'll do a double run. So I've got that selected, and I can select my double run tool here. Okay, it's done that. We've still got that jump stitch there though, because the first underneath will stitch first, and then the double run will stitch back again. So what we need to do is go to our colour film, and we've got our first object that wasn't double run, and then we've got our second object that we created the double run, and you can see it's twice here. The top one is selected, the one underneath is that one there. Now we've done the double run, if we swap these two over, because if you look, let's have a look. The first one will stitch from the center out. Let's just go to our reshape tool to see that. I've got the first one selected, and I'm going to go to the reshape tool, and we can see that it jumps over here. Let's just zoom out a little bit. Show all would be good. Okay, and it finishes on the outside. So it jumps from this object here to the center and finishes on the outside. If I go to my second one and go to the reshape tool, we can see that that one finishes in the middle. Stitches from the outside into the middle from where we finished the first one. So if we swap these over in their position in stitching by dragging up to here, what will happen is that when it jumps from this object, it will jump to the outside, stitch into the middle, and then stitch back out again, and you can easily trim your jump stitch from here. Okay, now let's have a look at this in artistic view, and you can see, or you may not be able to see, but if we go to 1 to 1 it might be more obvious. Okay, because I've moved the center and they look different, it's a bit hard to tell, but even the more open areas of the design are more thickly stitched than this one over here. Because we're going round twice, it's much heavier stitching, so you may not want that look either. You might still want it to be delicate like this one over here. So once you've done your double run and swap them over in your film strip so that you're stitching from the outside in and then from the inside out again, you can then delete your second one to get it back to that just single row of stitching. So we'll select the second one and delete it, and you can see it's much more delicate now, and that way you're still, if we go back out of artistic view, you're still getting your jump stitch on the outside. So it's easy to trick the software in this instance, because you can't move your start and end points of the object in your reshape tool with the ripple fill, but just that simple act of creating the double run, swapping them over, and either keeping it if you want it to stitch twice to be more bold, or removing it. You may want it to stitch twice. The one time when you would is if you actually change the density of this object. Let's just select it and right click on it. Oops, I've duplicated it accidentally. Let's just undo that. I do that sometimes. Select it. It's just the way I click on my mouse. That's better. And to change the density, it's the stitch spacing. So let's increase that to 4. So we're doubling the stitch spacing and applying it, and if I move this across, you can see it's much more open now. So you can create very open stitching, and then you might want to leave the double run so that it's more dense. Let's just OK that, and while it's applied, apply the double run. Okay, and you can see now, because we started on the outside, the double run has actually just restitched back from the inside out. We'll go to the artistic view. Let's deselect it. Artistic view. Okay, so we've got quite a bold stitching look here, but it's more open, so the machine will cope with that. but we've given it a bolder, more like a double, well, it is a double run of stitching